Out there. Do you see it? Says that we're live. We are live, David. We are officially live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live stream on my Bow Wow Bill page. And say hi to David. David, how are you, buddy?
Hey, how you doing, brother? Hi, everybody.
It takes a while for people to trickle in here, and the majority of people, they watch it after the fact. And if you guys are watching this and you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please consider doing so. Bow Wow Bill on YouTube. I'm also streaming live right now to Twitter, or what's called X. So I'm Bow Wow Bill, all one word, on X. And I think that I'm going to be doing some exclusive content just on X as well. So I'll be streaming live one of these times just only on X. So make sure you're following me there. And if you appreciate the stuff that I'm doing here, and we have some announcements to make with some exclusive content that David and I will be doing on my Patreon page. And so consider supporting me as well on Patreon. And my Patreon page is Bow Wow Bill, Bow Wow Bills, plural, on Patreon. Your live stream, what does it say? Oh, I just went live, Heather. I don't know if it's showing or not. Hold on. Wasn't sure if it started, but okay. She said that she's on. I have an announcement that my live stream isn't showing up on my Bow Wow Bill page. I think it's showing up on YouTube. So if you guys, I will check and share it on my Bow Wow Bill page as well. So yeah, I'll post up a link to my Patreon page in the comments, you guys, if you wouldn't mind supporting me on there. The more people that we can get supporting me just for a few dollars a month really helps the quality of these live streams and allows me to do so much more with this stuff. So thank you so much for your support. And let's talk to David. David, so while I share this, I'm going to see if it's on Facebook streaming live. And while I share this, would you mind giving people a quick little introduction about who you are, where you are, and what you're all about?
Well, my name's David Adebimpe, and I'm the chief scientist for Logics, which is a brand. The company name's Polymath Into Science, and we engineer and manufacture odors. We engineer and manufacture odors in relation to probably to all biological detection, and also with electronic for electronic detection machines too, because since it's parent odor that we manufacture, they could be used both for biological detection purposes or for machine detection purposes. That's what I've kind of been doing for the last 20 years.
What got you started in this stuff, man? When 20 years, so actually longer than 20 years. Now it's like 20 going on 24 years because it's 2024 now.
Actually started 23 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, what was the catalyst to get you to start working with odor? And
well, the catalyst was 9/11 for me. A lot of people died a little that day, and the way it affected me was that I lost a few friends that day, and I felt I could do something to rectify. I mean, I felt I could do something so such things don't happen again. And I'm a scientist, and I knew that through science, a lot of advantageous solutions could be found. And I've started writing proposals to agencies that had scientific foundations to see whether they were willing to whether they had problems that I could solve.
Hmm.
And I went to a few a few organizations. However, they didn't listen. However, the United States Marine Corps listened, and they challenged me with a problem they had with canine scent kits. They challenged me with solving their inability to to take their scent kits with them downrange, because these scent kits were still rated as explosives. So they wanted me to make non-hazardous equivalents of MN01 kit then, and which I felt was something I could have done in 6 months because I considered myself a good chemist. However, 24 years down the line, I'm in there. We I successfully delivered to the Marine Corps and provided them with their first and only um, set of scent similars that were replicas of the MN01, got which got upgraded to the MN76. And after that, I realized that there was more to be done than what we needed. Um, I was hired to do something to their requirements, but then I realized that there were other threats that were there, like the peroxides, for instance, which
Hmm.
we have in our kit, but that we needed training aids for detection. So the journey continued, and from explosives detection, we went into narcotics detection. After explosives detection, I kind of thought I was personally feel better. Didn't feel better, but I came into the game because I wanted to do something about explosives detection. And
Your
then
need your need to affect change from the
from the war perspective, it's
yeah.
just war. I mean, from the fact that people I loved were killed, and I want a revenge. I couldn't be given a gun. No one would allow me to be physical, but I could be mental about it.
Yeah,
You
work
know.
smarter, not harder, and not only that, but it's also I mean, we talk about the explosive, but we won't really get into too many details here to the general public, but we might get into a little bit further details on the Patreon page, when we
Yeah.
got, a more, refined audience there. And, this is so crazy. So you were a chemist. That's what you were, an academic and a chemist before on 9/11, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden you lost some friends and it broke your heart. Then you felt the need to do something, and so that's what started your path, and then the US
Yeah.
Marine Corps, because they can't travel around with these explosives,
Yeah. With
and
real explosives. Yeah.
with real explosives, and so you made so you broke down the components of it and made the odor, so it's essentially the same thing as far as for scent detection, and,
Mm, yeah. The old, I mean, I had to come to a fundamental realization, as one of the main basics. I had to um, philosophize and understand. And the fact is, what is the dog actually detecting?
yeah.
You know, the Marine Corps said we want training aids that will replicate that would replicate that you'll be able to get the same performance out of a dog of as our legacy training aids. But what they're invariably saying is that you're gonna go into a journey into scent detection, and we want you to make odors that are so similar to the original that a dog wouldn't know the difference. Because 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 the bottom line is a dog doesn't find an explosive. A dog finds the source of the odor you've trained it to find. Now, if that odor overlaps with an explosive, then you're good to go.
Right. And so,
And then how many derivatives of that explosive would it also overlap with? Would it overlap with just one manufacturer's definition of that explosive?
that's
Would it
right.
overlap with all manufacturers where in your state, in your nation, in your continent, or around the world? You know, those were the challenges that we knew we had from the start.
Well, and
Because
as
because we saw the challenges that were being had by those that were using legacy aids and going downrange.
and then when we look at odor, so odor is scent, right? And scent is what is odor? Let's start there.
From
What
our definition of odors and scents, odor is a collection of gases that can sensitize the nose. I'm trying to find a better definition of it, but what I'm trying to say is that odor is odor is one or a combination of gases that can sensitize the nose. Gases that can sensitize the nose are called odorants. So within a scent signature of a material, you will have odorants, those that would cause the sensation of you recognizing their presence. And you would have those that are non-odorants. Just like, for example, if methane is part of a scent signature, you ain't gonna smell it. If carbon monoxide is part of a scent signature, you ain't gonna smell it. So there are a combination there you have scent signatures, and within the scent signatures you have odorants. And it's the ratio, it's the ratio, and it's the ratio of these the presence and the ratio of these odorants to one another that I would term as odor. So odor typically generalizes a scent signature, a collection of odorants. Because in my studies, I have not yet met a material that has just one odor. Oh, sorry, that just has one odorant. It's always a collection of odorants.
Yes.
Cocaine is one single material, but its odor isn't cocaine, and it's just not one odorant. Heroin is one material, but there are seven components in its scent signature, that are odorants.
Right, and we're dealing with the processed version of this, and how the Britannica. I'm looking at the scientific definition, and the Britannica says odor is a property of certain substances in very small concentrations to stimulate chemical sense receptors that sample the air or water surrounding an animal or human, I guess. Right, and so
Yeah. So
um,
it's not just the presence of these components within a scent signature, but it's their interaction with the sense. The nose. How do they interact? The biophysics of it, the dynamics of it, and also the perception of it. Because at the end of the day, it boils down to perception. The eyes don't see color. The brain tells the eyes what it sees. The ears don't hear sound the way the brain modulates, regulates, refines, processes, boils it down to the kind of brain it is. which is dependent on the kind of animal you are. You know, I don't think we smell things the same way dogs do. You know,
Yeah,
they
I
have
know we
a
don't. I mean, when was the
they
last time
they,
that
they
you went?
enjoy they enjoy no sight better than we do.
Yeah, nose. What did you say? Nose sight?
No sight. We call it no sight at St. Logics. We always try to have to remember that the nose itself is a sense of sight. So we say eyesight, ear sight, and nose sight. That way, we try not to use eyesight to make to make rules for nose sight. You
Hmm.
know, eyesight helps us to learn about nose sight, but makes no judgment. Our judgments are derived out of logic, not
That's
of
so
eyesight.
fascinating to me, man. Like, and people don't real like that's what people need to realize. Like, we don't see with our eyes. We don't hear with
Uh,
our ears.
We
We don't smell with our nose. Everything is processed by our brain, right? Our visual cortex, our olfactory sense, the cochlea. It brings in vibrations that are they are deciphered, and then have meaning based on our logic, and so many different processing powers that our brain has that we're not even aware of. It's a user illusion, right? We think that we interact with this world through by just seeing it, hearing it, and tasting it, or and smelling it. But if we really took a second to think about all the complex processing powers that happen to make our perception of this world possible, I mean, it's overwhelming, right? And that's why, thankfully, we're not aware of every little. I mean, even in my enteric nervous system, my stomach, right? The the different fluids that are being processed, the sphincters that are opening and shutting, the heart beating, us breathing, all that stuff is just automatic, atomic responses. And same thing with odor. And as we were saying about dogs have 10 times, if not, um, 10 to 1,000. Oh, wow. 10,000 to 100,000 times more acute than a human's. And one of
yeah,
the reasons is that the number of scent receptors for every scent receptor that a human has, dogs have 50, right?
11% of a DNA, 11% of a dog's DNA goes towards olfaction. Dogs have olfactory neurons on their brain. Dogs have a special compartment within their noses where not just where the volatile respirate, where odor is trapped for additional sampling. The membrane of a dog, the olfactory, if you stretch it out, it by far surpasses. You know, it's not about the number of neurons; it's about the surface area of the sampler. I mean, I strongly believe that dogs see with their eyes. I believe as with their nose. I believe that there's a visual component that has to do with olfaction with a dog. The way where the neurons go to in the brain, um, and the fact that for the simple fact that there's always a visual to an organism's primary sense of sight. And what's a primary sense of sight? That's the sense that you use to to fulfill your primary urges, your primary motives: food, sex, and shelter. I mean, for us humans, we use our eyes for those three. A dog uses its nose for those three. So that's its primary sense of sight.
Hmm.
It's the nose. You know, it's for us to learn about the nose. Obviously learn about the nose. No human can say, oh, no, I anticipate because my nose does this. A dog's nose does that. You know, just as there are disparate differences between the way we see and what they see with eyesight, and the range we hear and the range they hear with ear sight, it's the same with no sight. But with no sight, the special components that it's their primary sense of sight, and 11% of their DNA goes towards olfaction.
I
There
just put up
must be a visual component
Yeah, I
to
just put up
olfaction.
a image here. Check it out, David. And so we have nasal terminates with respiratory epithelium, olfactory bulb. And it's so interesting to me that that olfactory bulb comes right next to that eyeball there,
The eyeball.
right? And so that
Yeah.
has to have something to do with like what you were saying is like it ties in very closely to those systems.
Yeah.
And then
I,
for more,
I'm sure maybe in about 10 years, or maybe tomorrow, scientists are gonna come up, oh, we discovered this and stuff. But I think it's simple. I think it's obvious.
hmm.
I think it's obvious. Um, but yeah.
Well, and it's like Heather was just talking to me. So Heather Lowell's here. This is another a fellow scientist that we have, and she was talking to me about how she actually does an exercise with her dogs where she'll scatter food and turn off all the lights, so make it totally dark in there, and then make the dogs use their nose because just how we interact with the dogs and the way that we structure our world because we do see with our eyes, we inadvertently teach the dogs to see with their eyes in a way.
We teach them the way we want them to live in our world. Our way. The way we understand our world is, and with the way we assume, their world should be, because they seem to understand us, or because we're the kings of the world.
Yep.
But it's all about perception. It's all about what you see and your perception of it. Because at the end of the day, at least flies don't know we exist. They have compound eyes. They see in the ultraviolet. They don't know we
Yes.
exist. We probably look like big blurry mountains, So it's but then we would assume they see us, you know. When they land on windows or they land on your TV, all they're trying to do is get out. They're attracted towards ultraviolet radiation. If you just
Hmm.
open your door and put on your lights, they'll go out. So it's all about nature. Nature is there, but we have to understand each organism's perception of the world they live in, and that perception would be based on the limitations provided by their senses, or the graces allowed by these senses. And a lot of grace in the senses harbored by a dog, kind of dumbed down into a microcosm of happiness, so that they wouldn't have all these flexibilities of thought that we humans have, because we are white light chauvinists. It's a different kind of world. We're color mongers. We have war because of colors. We see ourselves different just because of the way light reflects off us.
Yes.
And most of our desires are based on the same things too, on beauty, what we consider beauty, glitters, and stuff. But and that's because of the fact that we're visible light organisms. Dogs, I believe, whom are no sight organisms, the energy of the nose is in the infrared. So they see infrared energy. So that means that they see emotions. So their behaviors tends more to the emotional spectrum. They
Mm.
know when the chief wolf is healthy and strong because his infrared energy is bright. They know when he's becoming a weak pack leader because the glow has diminished. They know when you're ill because the heat signature of that area will be different to others, and they know when you're pregnant because they can feel that additional body of warmth embodied in a body of warmth. So they they see life, their perception comes from no sight. A lot of what they do comes from no sight. I've heard of dogs who've been blind and their owners took the owners a while to know these dogs are blind because
Hmm.
the dogs were in the house and just walking around like nothing. It's only when they start knocking on stuff, they start suspecting that there might be something wrong with their eyesight if you don't take them out, if they were house dogs. So yeah, we find no sight very fascinating, the world of no sight. And we've made no mistake to think that we know anything just because we've seen it with our eyes. Um, for we humans to deal with an organism like that, you have to be purely data driven and not biased and not have any human conceptions because we're on different levels. We're on different sensory levels, different perception levels. They're on enviable perception levels.
Well, it
So
reminds me, do you know, have you ever heard of a Carillion photography? Here, let me pull this up here. So, I mean, and I got a couple comments to get to as well. If you guys have any comments or questions for David, put them up, and we'll get to them here in just a second. Like we are like you said, we are. Would you call it chauvinistic? We are
white light chauvinists.
white light chauvinists. I like that, dude, because it's so true. Um, and a lot of times too, I believe that we aren't aware of all of the different mechanisms in this world that affect life. And the number one mistake that I see my clients make as a dog trainer is anthropomorphication of their animal, right? And I talk to them because it's a disservice to that animal because they're not capable of the thought processes that we have. And I encourage them to become the dog by proxy. And we can only do so much because we're still looking through the limited lens of a white light chauvinist. And it would be, I mean, it just blows my mind. It makes me think of this stuff here where they have these cameras, man, that people use, and they use them to take pictures of like people's auras, right? Or this is a Carillion
Yeah.
photography here, right? Of somebody's
Okay.
hand,
Yeah.
right? And then they'll take pictures of um, living things or things that were just harvested, like food or leaves, right? Here's a mushroom that was just cut in half, and they find that, I mean, I call it life energy. That's what it looks like to me, right?
Do
But
you know what frequency of? I mean, what wavelengths they're looking at?
I don't
Obviously,
know.
these ain't invisible. They look like ultraviolet.
Yeah, that's
Looks
what I
like
was.
ultraviolet.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking as well.
It's not
Uh,
infrared.
no,
Yeah.
ultraviolet, but I can
Because
find out too. But I
yeah,
just, when you were talking about that, like the dog looking at the wolf and knowing if the wolf is healthy based on their mood, right, and their emotion.
yeah,
And so this is what comes to my mind. Like I remember looking at these photographs, and there's actual studios that you can go into and get snapshots of your aura taken. And not only that, but it's also been ways of highlighting like cellular activity, different aspects, because it shows us a different viewpoint of the world that we aren't capable of. And it's mind
yeah,
blowing to me that our animals might very well be able to see the world like this. And I mean, it's beautiful, but also imagine how much more information you can gain. Um,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's all about senses. Um, about 6 to 8 years ago, I was in the some of the back bushes in Africa. Actually, went for a training program there for it was working on conservation, and we got to a village, and I saw that the chickens were all dyed purple. And I asked, why did you have to dye these chickens purple? They said, when you dye your chickens purple, the eagles don't see them. You know, and that made me smile because that's how Mother Nature tries to do her games. You
mm,
know, in most instances, you're still your own worst enemy. So the eagle thinks it knows what it needs to get so well that purple is an unusual color and not in its food chain. I don't know how Africans knew about that. I was in the country in West Africa, in the bushes, and all the chickens there from that region onward were just dyed purple. And of course, we know eagles have seriously magnificent eyesight. When it comes to eyesight, they surpass us with their sense of, sight when it comes to eyesight. But it's so good that they're able to discriminate and they color discriminate the chickens simply because so they were not looking at context. It wasn't a contextual generalization, as some would call it. It was a color differentiation.
hmm. Well, and it looks like
So
we just had a comment, and I'm looking at these bird feathers have ultraviolet patterns that birds see in ultraviolet light, which could be covering them in paint, right? And so, and what I was just
that
showing
is
here
true.
was check this out. So, whoops, I just picked. I just had to Google that birds ultraviolet patterns, and check this out, man. This is pretty cool. So this is under an ultraviolet light here, and you can see like right here we have a bird feather under regular light, and then over here we have it under the ultraviolet. And
Yeah,
so,
but birds just don't go for birds. They also go for rodents.
yeah,
They go for small rodents too, and even reptiles. So it and ultraviolet light would penetrate paint. If you paint it, ultraviolet light is it's quite strong. It will go through paint. Um, so that's one of those areas that I find interesting,
yeah,
that but trying to translate it to sight. I try to translate everything to sight. One of the sights, eyesight, nose sight, ear sight, and use it to temper my imagination, whilst doing research, because research on a fundamental nature, just like olfaction, is like it's like going out to steal stuff from Mother Nature.
hmm,
She ain't gonna give it up so easy. You either have to try snatch it, try con it out. It takes a lot of being in the aquarium, and to try to find ways to decipher locks to get this information, you know.
absolutely.
So
Let's go to the comments here, David. We have Heather was talking about the this was a gal that's scattering the treats in the dark for her dog. She says, yes, she also has a working dog on a medication retrieval for service work. And she kept using her eyes to visually find the object. We used the medication in a snorkel to begin odor recognition and then turned out the lights and had her do it to do the retrieval.
Mm, I don't know. I mean, how are you sure the dog was using its visual if you were teaching the dog to find the source of odor? I think for visual retrieval and odor retrieval, there are different training techniques from the start. So that's a difficult one for me.
We have one. My Doberman definitely knew my surprise, which she was pregnant, and it was a surprise pregnancy, long before I did, by booping her nose in my stomach and trying to lay on me all the time. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, Tash. And that's an interesting one too. And probably it's also something to also try to connect the dots at this point when it comes to dogs and doing what Tash has just described. Those that deal with horses, it's it's common. They all know within their circles that that horses have a superb hearing range.
Hmm.
They actually comment within themselves with acknowledgement that horses could hear heartbeats. They say that more in the horse industry. However, the hearing range of a dog is just as good as a horse. Nobody ascribes good hearing to a dog, not as much as they do as a horse. So when it comes to the with pregnancy, I believe it's more or less a combination, probably, of the I mean the infrared and black energy perception, but I believe they hear a heartbeat too because they can. Why? Because their hearing range just like a horse. You ascribe all these things to horses, but none to dogs.
Hmm.
Now, when it comes to protection, I believe that half of the time the dog hears the irregular heartbeat of the suspect hiding, and that's what it goes for. Now, for when the dog is looking for a subject within a room, I would say that the dog's looking for irregular heartbeats, and it's something I've been saying for a long time. And I'm sure one day somebody's gonna come up and say it's a big discovery. There's a heartbeat component to some of these detection things that dogs do. Uh, so I said there's a hearing component when necessary. I believe even in tracking, there comes a time when the dog's next to the suspect. I realize the dog doesn't even bother about the track anymore. He feels it. He just knows where he's going. I think it's that time, the certainty that, yeah, if he hears a heartbeat, you know, I like to see someone make heartbeat generators to prove physicists could do it. You know, any of you guys get a heartbeat generator done and prove my hypothesis.
Well, I
I'm
know
sure it will
that
revolutionize protection, the
we
way protection is done and stuff.
with when I was breeding dogs, David, they have this thing that they found out that is a very very big seller. In fact, a lot of breeders, including myself included, have what we call is called a snuggle puppy. Have you ever heard of that? Here it is, and
No,
basically what it is
some
a
little.
is a
Mm,
it's a heartbeat stuffed toy for pet anxiety. And what they found is that these puppies,
mm.
man, so this right here, this little that's a heartbeat right there. It's a little heart that goes in there, and then you unzip the dog, and then the heart beats, and it really really calms these dogs down, man. Like it's crazy. I've seen it,
There's a
and
heart. There's
I
a.
there's a
That's
heartbeat in there
interesting. I mean,
that goes.
all one needs is a frequency generator and a subwoofer because it's low frequency.
Yep.
If and maybe one could try an item like this and put For over 25 years, we've been helping puppies and
Yeah, that's crazy.
to see whether
What your audio went out. Hold on. Can you hear me?
yeah.
Okay. For a second, your audio was out.
And you cannot hear it, can you? You cannot hear that contraption at all. It just goes on by itself.
Yep, you can feel it.
It goes on. You can't hear it. You won't be able to hear the heartbeat. It's low frequency and it's low intensity. Is it?
Yeah.
That snuggle puppy thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't hear it. I mean, you can hear it if you put it right up to your ear, right? But it's cool because it's just like dum 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 dum. And you can see the dogs just like this guy right here, who's here. Let me pull up or share this.
Do they attune it to the beat of a typical dog's heartbeat, like the mother's, like a mother, like
yes,
like a weaning mother's heart
yes,
rate or heart rate by heart rhythm?
yep, I believe so. I mean, I don't know, but look at this. Look at how many we got: 62,000 or 61,000 reviews, 5-star reviews, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna look through some of these reviews real quick because this is fascinating to me, man. I mean, not just a pricey gadget, so many pet items that are just flimsy.
Well,
Wanted my 6-week-old puppy. I wanted a soft cradle at night in my bedroom. Got worried about leaving her. Yeah, this is what. In fact, this is what I do with all of my clients. I actually have them purchase this, right? And I'll have them at my place. And when I start to do the crate training with the dogs, I start to separate them. I'll have the crates all stacked up, and each one of these has one of these snuggle puppies in there with the heartbeat. And I tell you, David, it is night and day. These dogs calm down, they go and they sleep and they relax and they snuggle up with this thing because it's like a companion for them, and all it is a heartbeat. And
I would like someone to buy one of those things and put it on and throw it in a training scenario for search and detect for humans in a room. I like to know how the dog reacts to that room, whether the
okay.
dog would show a strong COB, whether the dog would just right past, or whether the dog would show a COB and go in. It would be interesting if practitioners could do this all over, and then one just tries to test out this idea that in most patrol instances and tracking for suspects, for instance, there comes a time where where the nose works in conjunction with the ears, and a time where confirmation is actually done by the ears.
Well, and I think that the electronic component might have something to do with the detection too, right? Just like I was speaking with Mike Lilly, and he was talking about dogs getting frustrated because the stamina is not up, looking for some contraband, and then indicating on the cell phone because they were taught with the pop boxes with the
Susan,
electronics in it as well.
Jeremy,
So,
close the door. Thank you, dear.
yep. And so that's another consideration. But I'd be happy to
No, what did you
follow up
say,
with you.
please? I didn't hear you.
Oh, I was just talking about it
focused
being
on the dog.
electronic, like the heartbeat being electronic, right? And so if these dogs are, if they are electronic detection dogs as well, and the components that are present within that little heartbeat thing.
That might give a harm. Then you put on other electronics.
Then you would
Put
use
other
the
electronics
subwoofer.
around.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
you
Or
put other
electronic.
electronics around because it's the harming. Yes, one cannot forget that. I mean, I don't know these awareness of dogs, because you have to remember during the Vietnam War, dogs were used to find buried wires that were on, to track down bunkers that were on frequency.
So they had a current running through them, right? And so there's got to
Yeah,
be
when it has current running to underdogs, know that. So that means that they are receptive to they're sensitive. They have a sense somehow that is receptive down to such frequencies.
well, it's
You know,
ions too, negative ions, right? And just like when we're at have a thunderstorm or something like that, people say that the thunderstorm smell, even in human beings, is present, and that's negative ions within the atmosphere, right? And so it must be a derivative of the electronic, or I mean
or
the
or low frequencies, they just go down to such the frequency of a humming wire.
yeah. Oh yeah, or the ears, right? Not we
Yeah,
attribute it all to nose sight, but it could be either a
yeah.
combination
That
or
that I
exclusively.
would think is the ear. The
Interesting.
switch on, and for that, I mean, the odor will be a constant. It's the activity of the material that wouldn't be. So yeah,
And if you
that I would like to see a lot more work in the marriage of ear sight with
hmm,
eyesight. Of course, we know that we with no sight. I know we marry the sense of taste with no sight
yes,
without any problem.
yeah,
So quite
and I mean it's
quite
something
happy.
that
I think.
I mean even if you don't believe so, plug your nose and eat something, right, and see how that tastes.
Yes, and see, yeah, plug your nose and drink coffee and tell me what you had.
Yeah, exactly. It's wild. Here I got a couple questions here from you from Heather. So she has a question for you. In your research, have you found any merit in calming sprays, oil, or diffusing odor for dogs? So that would be the first one. Any merit in the oils or calming sprays or anything like that?
Mm.
Like lavender or
Um,
eucalyptus
I
or
personally do not see any merit in this, and I think it might be dangerous for dogs because you are actually creating an artificial atmosphere for them. What do we call odor? What we call, I believe, the intensity we call a scent is already a strong odor to a dog. So when we are saying we're making something that is natural for them, how can we quantify it with our own noses when we shouldn't be able to smell it?
yeah, because their sense of smell is 10,000 to
It's,
100,000
we
times.
want to move it. So we have to make it to that threshold, to that level, for it to be a comfortable, everyday scent for them,
Hmm.
and not just be some overpowering motel room trying to cover cigarette smoke kind of smell every day.
Yeah, well, I know that
So
whenever I put on cologne, my dogs sneeze, right? So it's just too powerful for them. They're like, "You stinky human," you know? What experiments do you know of, if
you
any,
know,
that highlight a capable of taking dog
mm,
out of fight or flight? Do you know of anything that is because a dog's anxious, do you know of any experiments that are capable of an odor, that would take a dog out of fight or flight? Like and she says,
no, calming
like
with either like
pheromones.
calming odors.
She says, "Are pheromones measurable?" My
Pheromones
understanding
are
was that
measurable.
they are or are not.
No, pheromones are measurable. They are.
Okay.
Pheromones are measurable uh quantitatively, no qualitatively, but not quantitatively. We
Hmm.
call pheromones, we call the that regime, we call it the insect regime.
Right.
Because a lot of insects are guided by pheromones. What the odor intensities that we live by is not the kind of intent. It washes out the receptors. It's like white light
Hmm.
to them. our own odor intensities, even though they also have receptors that are more specific to what we are trying to identify. Our odorants are different from their own odorants. Their odorants, normally called seminal chemicals, are specific odorants in which they have specific receptors for, or a specific subset of odorants, and they have specific receptors for these. And their their lives guided now by their own understanding of life is guided by their search for these odorants that signify certain things, like termites, for example.
Hmm.
We learned a lot about pheromone chemistry and pheromone science when we're working on termites to understand the different the soldiers had different pheromones than the than the than the workers, and soldiers had pheromones to even keep the queen a queen, to keep the queen comfortable. They had pheromones to to drive off prey, to make prey think that they're higher level animals. They culture mold and bacteria as gardens to fend off other things that these molds and bacteria are dangerous to give these seminal chemicals to tell them to stay away. So pheromone chemistry, it's there. um I used to be a I used to be an enzymologist. So of course you work on such picomolar levels, of substrate availability, and there are techniques to indicate the presence of such a pheromone, to concentrate them, to be able to identify them. You know, those things are available. Such
Well,
techniques are available, not within the realm of scent science, but within the realm of analytical chemistry, within the realm of enzymology, where they have to capture small amounts and concentrate them and analyze them.
well, and there's qualitative, which is can be perceived, and quantitative, which can be counted, right? It's
Counting, yes.
yeah. So it's so in one way it is because it is so small. I mean, and who knows what it is, but it's also that reminds me of the mimicry of pheromones for like ants, for example, right? And there's
Yeah.
certain other aspects of or certain well, there's certain alarm pheromones that happen. Like I'm sending out an alarm to attack, like bees
Yes,
and
listen,
ants,
yeah.
right? And then there's also Mother Nature has provided other species of insects that have figured out, hey, if I mimic this pheromone,
This
it will
odor, yeah,
yeah,
as an alarm, it would fend a certain subset of prey off.
yes.
Yeah,
Yep,
yes,
so that keeps them safe. It saves their life, right?
yeah,
Or right, and
yeah.
then the ants just think that it's another ant or something like that, or
You know,
where
we have to remember, for insects on that level, the antlers are it's a naked nose. It's a naked nose.
naked nose.
Um, so it's very sensitive. They are specific to keep them on their level of what their definition of the existence of life is supposed to be. Of course, different perception, but it's their sight, and you can imagine when your existence is dominated by smell. They make all their decisions based on smell. We are more material based. We are
Yes.
materials, because for us to like anything at all, we have to see it. For us to see anything at all, it has to be larger than the wavelength of light, because you don't see it if it's not larger than the wavelength of light, because light has to reflect off it for it to become a particle that you can see. So we're particle dominated. We like seeing structures. But for them, they are more focused on the individual, friend or foe. Friend, we build a house together, we stay together, we stay away from foe. But nobody wants to build a castle and somebody builds a heart and there's a ha ha ha. I want to be like that. I want a car like that. No, they just want to move around. But it's the material things and the differences now that makes us who we are because we're just material based,
Hmm.
object based, objects defined. And what's an object? Like I said, a material that white light can bounce off of. So we see the structure and we live lives defined by it. So they're on a different level, those that use their noses to define their existence. And we have to humble ourselves, sit our asses down, and get dirty with them, learn about them, get immersed with them, and then sometimes come out for fresh air to tell your colleagues what you've learned,
Hmm.
what you know, so that they could see whether you are right through repeating what you've said and they getting consistent affirmations at the same time. You can't we play with ourselves a lot with human beings because we have this wide gray area between black and white that we could stay and we could talk. And sometimes it's not whether you are right or wrong, it's whether you are the loudest, you know. But with Mother Nature, it's either black or white. You don't have that opportunity for flexibility, for excuses. No. Why? Because you are mining for things that have been there. You're mining to uncover phenomena. You're not discovering anything. You're uncovering stuff that's there. And we have to understand that. We are mining for information, for things, for structures that have been placed there by nature. And we got to still them. And we cannot be using our gray areas to patch pieces of information to make it work because it will not work.
Because it's being looked at from the lens of a white light chauvinist, like you said. And not
Yeah.
only do you have to be the loudest, but sometimes you have to be the best looking, right? Or yeah, right,
You have to be the loudest materially.
materially. That's right. That's why I love talking to you, dude. We just get into these rabbit holes, but it's like, and not only that, but when we start to talk about this stuff, we have to realize too that we have different tools, and as we advance in our technological abilities, we have different ways of perceiving and getting further down that rabbit hole to understand Mother Nature in ways. Does that make sense?
I think it's an easy decision to try to learn about Mother Nature, but I think once you get down that rabbit hole, after a while, you realize that the perception you have of life changes, and the perception you have of yourself, your and your goals change with it. It's humbling, I believe, especially dealing with Mother Nature. It's not like dealing with technology or dealing with electronics or writing code. No, it's like dealing with nature,
Hmm.
and unraveling the enigma of nature is fascinating and humbling at the same time. You know, I, I, I think that's why most good scientists are social misfits because the more they know, they see the 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 how how people take the things that are not that important. How they just take consumer things important where life has there are more important things to look at in life, rather than dedicate your time like to being on TikTok, or being on this, spending copious amounts of time on it when the currency of time is just passing by. So yeah.
I call it spiritual currency, the currency of time, right? Because there's something
Well,
that
time time's the most expensive currency we're spending.
you can never get it back, man.
You get
You know,
back. Where you have money, you better use your money to try and slow down time, fast forward time, reverse time, erase time, and maximize time. Because it's all about time. You
experience
know,
more time by maximizing your life. Like that's where
yeah,
right longevity sciences, all this stuff. And I think that I mean it would make sense with all the advancements that we have that yeah we'll have a little bit more time but even if you have more time it's still finite and that's why I like to call it the currency of time as well because that's why we say pay attention, right? Or spend your time wisely,
time. Yeah,
right? And as
yeah,
we develop percepts and then we come together and we're supposed to form concepts, right? Per and then with we bring our percepts together, and a percepere is the Latin root of the word percept, and that
yes,
percepere is to seize or to understand, right? And so, and as you start to understand this world, and even look at that word understand, like to stand under, right? To have a confidence in a structure so much that you're willing
yeah,
to stand under it. I mean, you look underneath, you look all around,
yeah.
and you develop as much data as you can to develop a
Trusting the
proper
truth,
perception. Yeah.
standing under something you're sure wouldn't fall on you is actually more protecting you. Of an umbrella of knowledge that you're standing under. You know, rather than an entrapment or something that could crumble. I mean, you should stand under an embodiment of truth, and the definition of truth, is not a theory, but it's a theory that has been tested through practice,
Yes.
you know.
Truth is
So,
something that can be very easily defined, right? It's that which is undergoing or having undergone the occurrence of or having occurred, right? That which is occurring now or has occurred,
occurred, yes.
right?
And it occurs the same way. It gives the same outcomes.
That's right. And but the
Gives the
thing
same
is that
outcome.
people's perception, right? They believe that you have your truth and my truth, and there is
Yeah.
but
And
there's
and 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 in the world of human beings, that could be the truth.
yeah.
But with dealing with Mother Nature, you don't have that luxury. Um,
I think that there's objective truth and then our perception or our experience, our subjective experience of the objective truth, and if we shut out the objective truth, that we're doing a disservice not just to ourselves but to the world as well.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, we're talking about scent and odor, right? And we start getting into
that's
philosophical.
right. Yeah, because I mean, it's biology. It's a sense, and I mean, it's a sense, and all senses lead to perception. And perception leads to behavior,
Hmm.
and collective behavior is culture. Interactions between this collective behavior, society. And it all comes from our senses, their limits, the limits of what we can see, and how the brain integrates them, and how we define ourselves within the chessboard that we're on. So yeah, it's I mean, a lot of work has been done with eyesight, and we know a lot about eyesight, to the extent that we can have glasses to correct it. We can actually surgically correct it. We know what the receptors are. We know the wavelengths that they're active with, with air sight. We know the organs, we know what the receptors are, we know how to correct anomalies with air sight, but then no sight has remained an enigma, and it's remained an enigma for so long that it's easy now that it's come up on stage. It's easy for scientists to have opinions about it, and it's easy for those that have used it as a profession over the years to have formed opinions about it. you know uh, I'm sure at the end of the day, 65 to 70% of practitioner opinions about olfaction would be right, because they would have learned that through the hard way, but work to really uncover the enigma in a defined scientific way has still been very slow,
Well, I
very
think that
slow. um, from me and my colleagues, very slow,
well, you shared
and
this
my
thing.
superiors.
Let me talk
you
about
know
this really quick too, because I think that this. Well, and keep in mind too, man, this isn't the first conversation that you and I are going to have. I guarantee it, and we're going to
yeah,
have one also on our Patreon here. But I wanted you
yeah.
shared this, man, and I think that this is something that is kind of the as you said, the culture of academia now, and this is something that happens where I think that this is kind of a rigid system that almost staunches innovation. What do you think about that?
Mm, it brings a balance. There's a balance between wants and need. In academia, you might want innovation that would lead to a product that could then be sold in industry. However, your number one mandate is to publish or perish. So, and it takes time to publish. By the time you've spent to publish one, it's time to publish another. So, for most academics, um, being able to develop a science that then you could translate into a product that would get to a technical readiness level that you can use in industry, you know, is uh, is quite difficult because of the pressures of still continuing going up the ladder in academia and transitioning from being an assistant professor to an associate professor to being a full professor, and then the politics of staying in being a full professor, maybe trying to be or trying to avoid being the head of department or a committee chairman, because that takes away from your research time, or whether you want to be a research professor or more of an academic professor, because you still have pressures to bring in grants, you know. Um, when I was
Jerome,
in academia, I never really thought about. I did research towards making products, but I think I think probably my dream would have stopped at probably just having a couple of patents, but more importantly, publishing, because that is where things are, But with 9/11, and I started going out to organizations and asking for their needs, I knew that the needs would be physical products, things that they could use, things that I had to produce that wasn't that weren't publications, that weren't reports, you know and that was a little bit exciting, to transfer from a world of publishing to a world of producing some things that had value, to humanity or to the people I love. It's my DOD. So yeah, that's an extra drive. And yeah, it's um it's very difficult being an academic and being industry at all. I've had a few friends in academia that had spin-offs whereby they developed the technology, and then the university, because the technology in academia and technology is owned by the university, and
Hmm.
it's licensed to a company, or it's spun off into a company, and of course the academic is vested in that company. It's hard to juggle the lives. I personally, I'd rather academia than industry. You know, people that know us very well would know we're bad business people at St. Logics. We're good scientists, but we're not too good in business. Um, I think it's difficult, if not impossible, to be both. You
Well, and
know,
I think that's
um,
causing you to evolve into education, right, and start certification process of some of the people that are going to be using some of your products, and I think that that might
but
be a bridge to better business.
yeah, now we have to learn to be better business people, because most of our job as scientists has been done. We came into your community to do a job, which is to decipher the enigma of odor. And as we came in, the Marine Corps, I mean, what they asked us to do was replicate um, the, the canine scent kit. And not only did we do that, but we've been able to extend that. And we think our job is done as scientists. As far as odor is concerned, we can engineer, we could engineer an odor for any material, and we would engineer it to be so good that a dog cannot know the difference. And by not knowing the difference, you can actually use it to train the dog to be a detector of that target material with a proficiency that is superior to if the dog had used its target material as its training aid.
Hmm.
That's what we say, and it is a prediction of biophysics that if you have a scent signature that is pure, that a dog, or though that an organism trained, an organism with olfactory capabilities, professional capabilities of olfaction, if that organism is trained on its odor, then that odor will show a superior capability. That's just what we proved with dogs.
Well, and I see here, let me scentlogics.com is your website. Let me make sure I put up a link here for up here in the comments below. And then I wanted to share this too, because here we have your website, and this is so we have narcotics, we have the explosives and firearms. This is crazy, man. Like
Yeah, we
good
have
to have you.
40 we have 40 different kinds of training aids now. So there's no need for us to be dilly-dallying around acting like we don't know what we're doing, or we've waited over a decade for for science to catch up with our own science. And we've proven our science over and over again. We've done living things, termites and bed bugs. We've done non-living things, narcotics, explosive, electronics. We've done plants. We've done mold. We've done animals. We've done termite. We've done cadaver. What else are we gonna do to prove that we know what we're doing? And we've challenged the community for over a decade. Uh, we don't say we don't ask whether our products are good. We're asking, you see, is there anything wrong with our product? That's what we want to know as scientists, not, oh, is there anything wrong? And there's been nothing wrong with our product since conception on any of the 40 products that we have. So our job is done within that realm, and done not by publications, but by making tools that people need. We can always publish. Now, probably we're going to start publishing, but it was more important for us to fulfill our goal and deliver for those that we serve. And now we can go now and start publishing, and within that publishing, start educating and start training those that we serve on what we've learned, and yeah, and start certifying. So yeah, for that we will need to learn to be more of a business. However, we would always, I mean, since we have to support um, this transition, this training and education, we have to support them with publications. We have to support them with other with validations. So that'll be going on the St. Logics perspective. But for the education, certification, and training perspective, it will be to find innovative ways to apply um, targeted, I mean, what I'll call odor-based training, to apply true odor-based training in the act of detection, in the science of detection. You know, Logic's odors are specific odors that are scientifically formulated to represent the scent signature of their parent materials. And of course, the effectiveness of these has been proven through practitioner use for over a decade. But what the heck is it? How does it work? How does it work so good?
Hmm.
Is it real? These are the things that really practitioners need to know. When they know enough about training aids, then they might realize that at the end of the day, there is a use for all the training aids out there. Logics might be the best, but it might not be the most appropriate for certain jobs. But how would you know if you do not know what a training aid is, what a training aid should do? Practitioners don't know what a training aid is, because what they call a training aid ain't a training aid. What they're calling training aids are training aid producers. Cocaine ain't your training aid. The odor of cocaine is your training aid.
Yes.
TNT ain't your training aid. It's the odor of TNT. So there are institutionalized misconceptions that need to be addressed here. And it comes from fundamentals, what they call real ain't even real. Your odor is your training aid. But then, if you now know that cocaine is not your training aid, but a training aid producer, for you to know the quality of your training age, aka odor, wouldn't it be right to ask the cocaine, hey, how old are you, man? Because I know old people smell different. Hey, how pure are you, man? Because I want you naked, but if you're wearing a tuxedo with a fedora hat, tell me about it. You know, what you're handling history, man. And stuff like that. What are you contained in, man? Because all these would affect my real, which is the odor. So there are fundamental misconceptions that need to be addressed, and I just feel honored, and I would be honored and proud to be able to tell the story of odor the way we know it, the way we've proven it, and crush down some institutionalized misconceptions that makes the people I love make the wrong decisions, and not be able to be as successful as they want to be in the performance outcomes of their dogs. Because for many things that trainers have been accused of and dogs have been accused of, actually the problems come from an unoptimized training aid. But nobody blames the training aid as long as it's real.
Well, and
Not
we have to realize
not
too
knowing
that.
what even
Oh, go ahead. we have to realize too that some of well, first off, some of these drugs are cut with so many different substances, right? And then also, and if we're
Yeah,
detecting or imprinting a dog on that core, then the dog might be getting a different variation of what that
not
is,
that the dog
right?
might be. A dog most certainly would be. I mean, how bad could it be? I'll give you an example of how bad it could be. We know that heroin is laced with fentanyl. Now, how much fentanyl can you get in heroin?
Hmm.
Maximum maybe 8%, typically 5, 8%. However, when you train a dog with such tainted heroin repetitively, there comes a time that your dog will start alerting on pure fentanyl by itself. That's an 8% contaminant. So now, how about the other components in the heroin or the other components in cocaine? What that tells me is that if your contaminant is more than 8%, then your dog will start alerting on that contaminant as it is the pure material. I'll roll that down again and put it on another level. Explosive scent simulants are made on the condition that the amount of explosive in it cannot be more than 8%. So most training aids, not logics, but most commercially available non-hazardous training aids out there have no more than 8% explosive composition in them. However, are they not used as training aids as if now can we not consider that 8% to actually be an 8% impurity in a material? And we use that as a training aid to train the dog to detect pure targets. So that's the power of an impurity that we try to blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. You know, I mean, training aids need to be pure.
Yeah.
If they're not pure, then you train consistently on them, your dog will start to alert on every single impurity that's in that training aid if that impurity is more than 8% of its composition. You could say same logics. That's another thing that scientists are going to say it's a discovery, maybe in 2 years' time.
Well, and remember, well, I won't say about the like a couple case studies that I know about that I'm not going to say here. We'll talk about it on my Patreon when we do that eventually. But where criminals are smart, man, and they're watching this stuff and they know how to trick these dogs because they have in order to get their product or their explosive or whatever they're trying to do past the walls of security. And it's same thing with the drugs as well. They want to wrap this in some noxious substance or whatever. They try to trick these dogs and they start to realize ways that they can. Criminals are smart. um
Yeah,
and that's the other aspect of this too, is to realize that not only do they try to trick based on the substances that they use, but they try to also look for substances that cause a similar effect, like xylazine, right? And that they could cut and increase their profits by cutting it with something
yeah,
that
something that will bring that will have an additive effect
yes.
on the on its psychoactivity of the material. Yeah, I mean now fentanyl is being cut with xylazine,
Well, and I
so
looked at
now you will have heroin that's cut with fentanyl, that's cut with xylazine, amongst other things. And so now, what do we expect from that? That means that if the amount of xylazine in heroin is now more than 8%, I would really say 5%, because materials with five, I know explosive trainings with 5% explosive in them, and the dog's still alert on the explosive. And I'll use that as an analogy, you know. So I mean, with 5% xylazine by composition, in a material, the dog will start alerting on xylazine too. So what
Mhm.
would happen? That means that dogs are gonna start alerting Dogs that are imprinted and continuously trained on tainted, impure training aids would have dogs alerting on xylazine too in a short while. Now, it brings things that it brings issues that I believe our Leos need to address. I wouldn't really talk about all the ramifications of such, on this medium, but the transitioning of our dogs to alert on impurities, it's something that needs to be seriously looked at. The source of such pulsing should be identified, and it should be one of the aspects that should be integrated in the definition or the requirements of a training aid. Purity should be a requirement only because of the consequences we've seen of impure aids. Dogs trained on pure aids don't. Dogs trained on pure heroin, on pure cocaine don't alert on fentanyl. Dogs trained on pure heroin could alert on some varieties of fentanyl. We've seen that at Logics, but not the whole broad spectrum of fentanyl's derivatives. So, yeah.
I mean, fentanyl is essentially condensed heroin, right? It's basically, but it's not the same,
No,
or is it?
No, it's not the same. It has a similar parent backbone.
Okay.
Yeah, has the same parent backbone. There is in some in like real traditional fentanyl, and some derivatives of fentanyl based on the traditional fentanyl backbone. They have an odor that overlaps with the odor of heroin.
Okay.
That's why if you train a dog on pure heroin, you find those derivatives of fentanyl. But now now there are over 14 or 24 different kinds of fentanyl now.
Wow.
Using different backbones and stuff. So you might even now train your dog on a brand of fentanyl, and your dog will not find other brands of fentanyl.
Wow.
Just like we have with smokeless powder, just like we have with marijuana.
Yeah, many different varieties, many different
Yeah,
species.
different
Right.
varieties, different species, and but an incomplete overlap. An incomplete odor overlap of your training odor with the odor of the materials you want to detect. You have to, you have to, you have to, you have to know that there are three main kinds of odor, really. You have the parent odor, which is the odor of the pure material. By the time you want to take that parent odor and you want to train with it, it becomes training odor. And parent odor might not be the same as training odor. For example, you give me pure cocaine I have it in my hand, and then, oh, that's parent odor. I smell it, it smells, oh God, now I want to train with it. I can't train with it in my hand, so I put it in a plastic bag. And because I have dreads, you might think I might sniff some, so I lock up the plastic bag and put it in another plastic bag. Now the odor that comes out of that bag is training odor. I'm training on that odor for what? For target odor. Now you see, parent odor, when I put into a containment to train with it, it becomes training odor. And I'm using that towards finding target odor. So is there consistency between parent odor, training odor, and target odor? Is my parent odor really target odor? Is my training odor really target odor? Is my target odor really training odor? Is my training odor really parent odor? How consistent are these odors in the transition?
Hmm.
These are the rudiments that a scent practitioner needs to understand. So if you gave me TNT to train with, and I put it in a metal can, the odor that's got the training odor coming out of that will be different from the parent odor, because the metal can's gonna catalyze that TNT. And if you don't believe me, go train your dog in a box, or go train your dog in using another material, and then go for a knot test where they use metal cans. A good dog would walk it as it should, because the odor is different. The dog
Interesting.
ain't falsy. So we need to know our odors. Not just use the word as a buzzword and blah, 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 odor. No. We need to learn about odor. We need to define our odors. We need to quantify our odors. We need to be able to give appropriate names to the different kinds of odors so that we can know that there are differences. Training odor, parent odor, target odor. What are the differences? They should be the same. But are there any differences in your odor? What could cause these differences? Of course, the manufacturing, your training aid could be tainted. It might be pure, but just because of the way it was manufactured, you have manufacturing components within the training aid that will not let your parent odor be equal to target odor. So you train with American TNT and you're certifying every single year, but then you go abroad and then Russian TNT, your dog walks it. That means now your parent odor isn't target odor enough to cover all the targets your parent odor is supposed to target.
Hmm.
I'm a scientist. You got to be able to break things down into little bits that you connect to get what you want. And I had to break it down, and we had to break it down at Logics so that we had the kind of understanding that we could deal with Mother Nature with. And that is breaking it down into simple building blocks, realizing that there could be these differences and trying to avoid falling into traps that would make us overlook things that are actually fundamental. The fundamental thing is odor. And you can't start doing anything about odor if you do not know the composition of that odor. How are we able to make the things we make? Because we know the compositions of odor. So forget about, oh, we don't know what a dog smells. Logics does. If they didn't, the dogs would have revealed it a long time ago. So we're not dilly-dallying, waiting around, arguing about odor. We're moving on to apply this knowledge. The knowledge comes with educating practitioners about what's going to be applied, and then the application of it in better ways in which they have been traditionally applied. Because we always say with Logics, we say you can use it according to your own training regimen. That's all we've always said, because there are many roads to Rome. However, some roads are better than others.
Yes,
And
they
it's now
are.
to talk about those better roads now through education and training so that practitioners could make better choices. What I mean by better choices, I want practitioners to know is that it's not for them to use Logics. It's for them to know enough about training aids and odor that they'll be able to select which training aid is best for what they want to do. If they want scents, they might find something that produces scents, because Logics produces odors. You might reduce Logic odor into a scent by using a soak. But then you might say, oh, it's too expensive. I want to just buy a material that produces a scent and not an odor. But in doing that, you have to remember You could build scents out of odors, but you cannot build odors out of scents, because just as you're putting the scents together to make it intense enough to be an odor, you're building up to with all the other things that come with it. It's packaging, contaminants, everything. There's also an additive value of that. You could add it up to such a bulk that then these components now are now more than 8% of the composition of the odor. Then you have problems with dogs alerting on that again. So it's so simple, it's complicated. It's simple, and we look forward to sharing a lot of these simple things with the community that needs it the most, as we transition from just making products to talking about the science and the fundamental science of sense, olfaction, olfactics, and detection.
And how to apply that and how to use it and how to be thorough with the knowledge that you have. It's like an inch wide gap, but it's a mile deep, man. Depending on the scent that you're working with, and then you also have all these different training aids and accessories too, right? That work with. I love these magnetic 360 above ground stashes too. And I love that they're magnetic and but you also have to look
magnetic, and they have a honeycomb structure to increase the surface area of the voids. Because remember, I said we don't encourage having metal canisters. However, the community cried for it.
Yes.
So in an effort to please the community, we came up with a canister that virtually has no metal. I say virtually has no metal because biologically in nature, a honeycomb structure is known to be the structure that to get the best surface area out of a material. So we actually made these ourselves. We actually cut the holes ourselves. We actually did everything ourselves because we had to, for us to be able to please our clients and also do it within the confines of doing the right thing. If we hadn't been able to think about that, we'd never have done it.
Yes. I actually have people that just pulled up here, man. So I need to run. How do? But we'll continue this conversation, man. But I've got to split. How do people? What's the best way to people get a hold of you, David?
David at scentlogics.com is the best way to get in touch with me. And also phone number. Can I say my phone number? No. Or you can just call. You can call the office, and holler at me through there. But typically, David at scentlogics.com. You'll be able to reach me there.
It's also at the bottom of the ScentLogics, and I put it up in the comments here, and then also your email. And then we're gonna get into the product line and how to utilize it as well when we do another interview. And dude, I'm just so excited. Every time I talk to you, my mind is just blown with what you're doing and how you're actually taking this science to the next level. So thank you for what you do, David.
It's a pleasure serving a bunch of wonderful people. It's been fantastic serving a group of self. I learned being a patriot by mingling with people in your profession, and I look forward to taking my service to another level, through this certification, education, and training initiative. Yeah.
Well, David, Jerome says, do not give your phone numbers, David. And then Jerome, I'm after you, Jerome. Jerome is, I'm trying to get him on. I did a live stream with him, but the audio didn't work when we were at the NAPO Post School. And Heather, thank you so much for being here.
Heather.
I love Heather. She's amazing, dude. She's one of my favorite people. Yeah. So we were just chatting
we
before
need to talk, Heather.
Yeah,
We
we
need
were.
to
I was.
talk it. I'm forgot. And I'll be a lot freer very, very soon, and I look forward. I look forward to that.
Maybe that's something that Heather. Well, we're going to be doing a Napopo Gold School, Heather and I together. But I think that she says yes, we do. But I think maybe we should also do because I have so much land up here that we can do some scent work and and we can videotape it too. To do some stuff for your certification course out here if and we can dedicate the time, the space and the effort. So think
Yeah.
about some curriculum that you want to talk about um, to do out here. And then Jerome, I'm going to be doing his new product as well. I got some here that I want to do some unboxing and showing that when I have you on, Jerome. So looking forward to
Interesting.
speaking with you, buddy. And Jerome has those beagles.
Yeah.
I'm trying to talk my
I
wife
hope.
into letting me have one. Go ahead, David.
I hope the world knows I'm a Nipopo Gold graduate, and I have a concentration. I want to concentrate in detection. So that's the area that I want to specialize in Nipopo. I can't do it all, and I've divided working the world into different divisions, and the detection division is the division I believe I belong, the one which I've been working at, and the one which I like to apply um, my Nipopo education towards. So yes, anything scent detection based as Nipopo. Um, I would like the family to know that not only not only am I there as a resource to ask questions and stuff like that, but very soon I would like to be participating very actively too.
Awesome. Well, dude, I can't wait to get further into this with you. And Jerome, don't bring me a beagle, man. My wife is gonna kill me. I already got 7 dogs, and she's like, but I want one because those beagles, the nose on those beagles is
Yeah,
pretty remarkable, man. And I like how small they are for mold detection for termites and bed bugs,
and
right?
their energy.
And their energy, they get up everywhere, and their stamina is high, and they're very persistent and so yeah, but I'm not ready yet, Jerome. Oh, and by the way, I'm not going to be at the Napopo March school. Unfortunately, I have some other commitments up here, and so I'll miss you if you come back there, Jerome. I'll see you in the next one, and I want to just come to France and to come see you, buddy. So let's make that happen. Let's where I come over across the pond to come see you in France. Okay, Jerome. Well, David, let's say goodbye to everybody here. And then I'll say goodbye to
Yes.
you
Bye,
in the
everybody.
studio so you don't go anywhere. Okay. So bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.